we have an exclusive on unDivided that we've been kind of working on making happen for a couple years now. So a little bit of background here. You will, of course, if you're from around here, know about the Manny Ellis case. So Manny Ellis, young black man living in Tacoma, and right before the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020, there was Manny Ellis. It didn't get a lot of attention until after George Floyd's death became this big deal, but Manny Ellis was he was high on meth. And there was a lot of kind of similarities that the media kind of drew between this and the George Floyd case. But he died in the custody of the Tacoma Police Department. And that happened again, I want to say a month before George Floyd, but there was really nothing put out about it. It wasn't this big controversy. And then George Floyd happened. And, the Derek Chauvin, there's the political uprising that happened across the country, and Derek Chauvin was ultimately arrested and charged with murder. And as soon as this uprising started happening over George Floyd, all of a sudden local BLM activists went back and brought up Manny Ellis's death. And now you have all of these things coalescing, and the mayor of Tacoma came out at the time, black woman, Victoria Woodards, and she came out and said these officers who were involved in Manny Ellis's death should be arrested, prosecuted, and fired. So it was only a matter of time before that's exactly what happened. So there were 3 officers in the case of Manny Ellis that faced criminal charges. Tacoma police officers Matthew Collins and Christopher Burbank, they were the first on scene that day that dealt with Manny Ellis, and they got charged with second-degree murder and first-degree manslaughter. And then there was a third officer who was charged, Timothy Rankine. He was part of the backup that arrived to assist those officers because they were having such a hard time getting Manny Ellis under control. So Timothy Rankine gets charged with first-degree manslaughter. I think it's worth noting that he had a partner with him who arrived that day who was black, who was never charged. And I always thought that's because they don't want a black man's mugshot up on TV when they're trying to say that this is about race. And this was what elected leaders in our state made it about. Oh, here's these officers, 2 white officers, 1 Asian officer. And they killed Manny Ellis just like George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. And they did it was because he was black. And they argued that, and the medical examiner had ruled that Manny Ellis died from oxygen deprivation, although the defense attorneys for these officers said he was high out of his mind on meth, and he had a pre-existing heart irregularity that they argued contributed to his death. So as you know, these officers go to trial. They were tried together, and they were acquitted by a jury of their peers. This is after they had been cleared in multiple internal investigations. And then we're in this moment of race and social justice awakening, and the Attorney General at the time, Bob Ferguson, now our governor, he decided, because Governor Jay Inslee gave him the permission, he was going to have a special investigation. And it was the Attorney General's office under Bob Ferguson that arrested, prosecuted, and tried those police officers for the death of Manny Ellis. And he did it because it was political. I said that all along. They were cleared so many times. And they used the last option they had, Bob Ferguson trying to make a name for himself before he runs for governor, charging 2 police officers with murder, a third one with manslaughter, brings it to trial, highly publicized. A diverse jury, black, white, Asian, in one of the most progressive places in the country, and they acquitted all 3 of these officers. So that happens, and then it's during President Biden's term. And President Biden's DOJ decides, well, now, because we got to help them save face in Washington state, our Democratic friends, we're going to launch a civil rights investigation. And that civil rights investigation had been hanging over the head of these acquitted officers until President Donald Trump came into office. And a couple weeks ago, as you know, President Donald Trump's Department of Justice said we are closing the civil rights investigation into these 3 former Tacoma police officers. And so that is what has finally allowed one of them to come forward and decide that he wants to tell his story. So we've been in touch for the last couple years with Timothy Rankine. He has never spoken to the media about the night that Manny Ellis died, about what ensued, about the political prosecution that he endured. So on Sundays with Subscribers this week, we have a 90-minute interview with Timothy Rankine where he goes over all of it. emotional, in great detail. I want to play just a couple clips of it for you today. So first, we talked about how he found out and really the feeling that this was all political, right? And the moment he found out that he was going to be charged with a crime in the death of Manny Ellis, here that is.
I remember, so the day that we got charged, I mean, it was you want to talk about timing things, it's the same week as George Floyd anniversary. Me, Shane, and Matt were all combat vets that did the same job, got deployed numerous times. So, you ask any combat vet that has been deployed multiple times, Memorial Day weekend was that weekend. And I was like, for most veterans, Memorial Day is, tough weekend for us. Because, you remember a lot of the people that died overseas, all your friends. So I was actually on my way to a tattoo appointment, of all things. I was on my way there, and I was on the highway, and, my wife now, but back then, we were just friends. She calls me and says, "Hey, you need to look at this." And I was like, "What? Okay." And so I look at it, and it's, I think, a news article. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I end up pulling off of the side of the road on the highway and reading it. And so I found out we were being charged the same time everyone else was.
Unthinkable.
Yeah. And I remember getting off the phone with her, reading the article, instantly taking the next exit, start heading home, get on the phone with my lawyer, and my lawyer's like freaking out. He simply tells me, he's like, "I'm on the phone with State Patrol right now." And he's like, "There's been a warrant issued out for you guys' arrest," right? But so we found out at like, I think 12:30 in the afternoon that we were charged, but the warrant had been in the system since 9 a.m. So right when the courts opened, they issued out a warrant, and they didn't tell us about it.
Wow.
And so,
because I imagine you would have been happy to come in if this was
the
case.
Yeah.
Let's just do this.
Yeah, I'm a cop. I respect the law. I understand the law. Like, I would not have, if you asked me to turn myself in, I would turn myself in willingly. But the lawyer at the time, he said, "Hey, he's like, I'm trying to help you guys out." He's like, "But State Patrol has an arrest team waiting for you guys." And I was like, okay, so it's basically they set us up to make it like a big ordeal, because they want to see us. This is how I picture it in my head. They want to see us get escorted out of our house in handcuffs in front of the media, because why? It looks good for the state.
And for somebody who wants to be governor.
It's like, look at this cops. We got the cops, But he was able to talk to whoever in State Patrol, and we ended up just arranging a meeting at his office in Pierce County, which is like right across from Pierce County Jail. That's where we were supposed to turn ourselves over. There I was, turn around, put my hands behind my back, and put handcuffs on, and then, got escorted out to his patrol car, and then drove over to Pierce County Jail, and then went through the whole booking process, just like any criminal that I've ever arrested, go through a whole booking process. And then I think I was one of the last one. I was the last one in, to turn myself over to Pierce County. But, Matt and Shane were already there, and we were kind of like in the cells right beside each other.
So you saw them?
Yeah. We didn't get a chance to see each other, but I knew they were there. I could hear them. I could hear one of the other officers, I'm not going to say who, but, he was pretty emotional. You could hear him crying. So it was like, you're sitting there in jail, and you're like, what did I do to end up here? And then you hear like a fellow officer you look up to just crying in jail. And you're like, it's almost like this like sixth sense of like torture. Like, I think the one question I kept asking myself is, what have I done in my life to end up here? So, you think back on it, and you're like, man, what did I do to end up here? And then you're just like, the number one answer is, I don't know. I didn't do it. I feel like I've done a pretty good job living my life and trying to be a good human being.
Yeah. Gosh, it's a heavy interview. Again, we're airing it on Sundays with subscribers. I do have to play this clip, though, because I think it's central to really what I have been saying about this case and to what Timothy Rankine has been waiting to say about this case and to the person who brought it against him, now governor, former attorney general, Bob Ferguson. What would your message be to now Governor Bob Ferguson?
Man, I've thought about this for a long period of time.
And he will watch this.
Yeah.
So I want you to really think about what you want to say to him.
I mean, I feel like I don't know what you can say. Like the level of evilness that they undertook to charge us and put us through this whole entire thing. I was like, you can't put words to it, like. So to this day, like the AG Nick Brown still calls it a murder. Like newspapers still call it a murder. And it's like, how much more do we have to prove our innocence that we did not murder that guy that night? It's just, bad things happen. But yeah, to Bob Ferguson, to Patty Eakes, to Nick Brown, to all the people that came after us, I mean, I don't really have any words to say, but this life is bigger than us. You're gonna face not my judgment, but a higher power's judgment. You're gonna face God's judgment at some point in time in life. And I hope you have a good reason to explain why you did what you did, because for me, I've made peace with it, that ultimately, like, I mean, I have nothing to say. I've made peace with it, that it's out of my hands now. It's God will judge you, not me.
That part of our exclusive interview with former Tacoma police officer Timothy Rankine, who was acquitted in the death of Manny Ellis, and whose life was turned upside down and who still, to many, is guilty in the court of public opinion. That interview is going to air in its entirety, exclusive to unDivided subscribers this Sunday. So if you'd like to become a subscriber, sign up, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. It is an emotional interview. It's very detailed and really the first look of its kind, I think, at what it is like as a police officer and what it was like in that political environment to be worried about what might happen to you for doing your job. And it's emotional all the way around. And he has, kind words for Manny Ellis's family. He has sadness for the fact that they've lost someone that they care about. So don't miss it. And we will have a lot of teaser clips going out as well.